Hi, and welcome to Something to Talk About. I'm Linda McNamee, and as you saw from our introduction and our happy little bubbles there, tonight's episode is about back talk, which might be familiar to some of you, and you'll find out why momentarily. However, as usual, I want to take care of a few housekeeping rules. If you would like to call my wonderful guest, whom you will meet momentarily, you can always give us a call at 781-270-9199. You can email me anytime, day or night, at talk@bcattv.org if you have a suggestion for a future topic or a question that remained unanswered by the show itself. But you do have ways of communicating. Anyway, I would like to thank my crew for this evening, Chris Flaherty. Happy belated birthday, Mr. Chris. And John Vias, who are staff members here. They make sure that the rest of us volunteers behave ourselves, keep the place neat and tidy and fully functional. We also have Evan Mcnamee and Luke Marcasoli. Luke, I hope I pronounced that right. And they are volunteers here, giving up their Wednesday evening to help at BCAT. So I do thank them very much. And since my son Evan is here, there probably isn't a daddy date night, so I hope my husband is enjoying a nice, quiet evening at home. Now, our wonderful guest, whom you may have seen around town a little bit, I think she's kind of becoming the presence of Burlington, Sonia Rollins, who is on the BACC Executive Committee, one of the many hats that you wear.
I do, thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me, Linda. It's nice to be here.
The person who suggested, well, actually, Jen Dodge suggested that I contact you, and she's like, oh, and Sonia does this, and she does this, and she does this. I'm like, okay, we're going to need more than one episode with everything that she does. So I'm very impressed with your resume.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you.
Can we start back kind of at the beginning, and
Sure.
Can you share with us where you grew up and how you came to the Burlington area?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was born and raised Massachusetts. I'm a New England girl.
Yes.
But grew up in Winchester.
Okay,
So
not too
too far, right? And really lived in Winchester up until I got married. So I went to school at BU. I graduated Boston University, a journalism degree. At the time, broadcast journalism, which now doesn't exist because broadcast is a different beast now, right? But went to school there, met my now ex-husband, but at the time husband, who lived in Burlington.
Okay.
So when we got married, we started looking around and we ended up here. We ended up living here, and it really just kind of flourished from there. I've been here ever since, and we love it. Raised our kids here.
So most people probably know you from your real estate presence.
Yes.
So how did you get involved in real estate? I mean, do you have a family history or?
Yeah, you know what? I love talking about this because I always say to people, realtors are a unique bird because there are very few people who start their career in real estate. There are people who start and say, I'm interested in real estate. But if you ask around different realtors, most realtors have had a past career, and it kind of morphs itself into real estate. For me, like I said, I had a journalism degree. I worked for NECN for years, 11 years. And when I started having children, I started going part-time.
Life changes.
Life changes a lot, right? But I was home, and I was involved, in a bunch of different organizations in town.
Okay.
And someone that I knew suggested that I try real estate. And I have a love for the English language, which is great. So you like to kind of write all of the things about the house. I have a love for people, also great.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
Yeah, and I like houses. So I thought, I don't know. And she introduced me to Mark Bettinson, who's the broker owner of Exit Premier, which is where I still work. And I remember very vividly asking him, don't you think there's enough realtors? Because it was just a question I had, and he said something to me then that struck and held with me for a long time, which is there's a lot of realtors in the world, but our challenge is to do it well. So I thought that was really cool, and I started out, and it just kind of flourished from there. It's been 20 years. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Now, do you just focus on Burlington or like?
No, so our office is in Burlington. We have multiple agents who focus in on Burlington and the surrounding communities. So we really, I always say where when you're licensed in Massachusetts, so you can sell anywhere in Massachusetts.
Okay.
But I tend to be right around the area. So I always
Okay.
say it's about a 30-minute drive time, because really to service your clients, you really should be able to do that. Now, every once in a while, a client starts within that radius and then maybe pushes out a little further. We take them to the finish line. But as a rule of thumb, it's Burlington and its surrounding communities.
So how has the real estate market been since the pandemic? I mean, is it?
It has been wild. I mean, it's very interesting, because when the pandemic first hit and everything was closing down, I remembered thinking, oh, this can't be good. You know, how are people going to continue on and sell and buy? And no matter what goes on in the world, people still have a need. You know, they have a need to move, whether it's a personal need or whether it's financially. For whatever reason, they need to sell and buy.
Okay.
And it was an element of unknown on what was going to happen.
I think for every industry.
For every industry, and we just didn't realize, would we be able to actually be showing houses and negotiating and doing all the things we normally do.
Yeah.
But,
virtual tours just, I'd be
well,
afraid
it's very interesting, because a lot of
house.
people did it. A lot of people did it via virtual tours. But I do think what happened is the market continued to go. The need continued to go.
Okay.
They said that real estate was essential in Massachusetts, so we continued to be able to show properties as best we could. And the mandates had to hold, of course, so no open houses per se and things like that, but a lot of virtual tours and a lot of single showings where people would be masked. and so
like
on.
by appointment only type things. Oh, okay.
And the unbelievable happened, which is the market kept going. Not only kept going, but actually elevated. And I think a lot of that was how people went to work and how people utilized their home changed. And
I
home,
remember hearing comments about, open concept isn't that important anymore.
No, home had a whole new meaning to people, because they were working there, they were living there, they were doing a lot of things there. And so people were leaving the city, wanting to come to the suburbs, and all of a sudden suburban real estate started to push up, where just to numbers we had never really thought could happen during a pandemic, right? So it has been, now we're coming into our third year, if you can believe that, right? And I know, horrifying, but amazingly enough, the market continues to keep pushing, which we're grateful for, but it's remarkable. Yeah.
Well, I've heard a rumor that you are actually celebrating your 20th anniversary in real estate.
Yeah.
Wow.
I know. Yeah, amazing. I started when I was 10.
Exactly.
But yeah, it has.
It's
been
maybe 16.
I know. A little fib. But yeah, 20 years. It's been 20 years with Exit Premier, so it's been really...
How have things changed? I mean, like you said, we've only been in a pandemic for going on 3 years, which is 3 years too long. But, my husband and I, when we got married, moved to Burlington, and that's 19 years at this point.
Yeah.
And I remember when we bought the house, it's like, I can't imagine real estate going up anymore. It seems to be already incredible. So what are some of the
so the
roller coaster ride that you've been on?
And it has been a roller coaster ride. The obviously is the pricing has changed dramatically. Like you said, what we thought were high numbers 20 years ago would be a dream right now to be able to capture at, right? So that part for sure.
Okay.
How people look at houses. Whereas we all waited for the Sunday Globe to come out so that we could see the real estate section, so that we could see what was coming on, right?
Getting out the atlas, going, okay, where's
absolutely.
The maps
I used to say MapQuest, which a lot of younger kids probably don't even know what that is, but MapQuest, I used to have to print all the directions to go to different houses, and God forbid you hit the brakes, and then the papers would fly in the car. But technology has moved real estate into a whole new direction. Yeah, and that's what really. I think the major thing that I could say to you is the way people do business now versus the way people did business 20 years ago has changed dramatically. The need isn't really different. The ability to talk to people isn't any different. It's still a people business. As much as technology matters, you are still connecting at some of their most important moments.
And the technology is still just a tool. You really do need that personal
connection. Absolutely. But there is a level of ease that has come over 20 years. You can write offers, send contracts, do all of that online. People are signing electronically, and honestly, with the last 3 years of COVID or 2+ years of COVID, that has even fine-tuned even more.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, just because people needed to be able to continue to do business, but maybe
Right.
not face to face, you know.
Right.
And so that has really, if you were to ask me the biggest change is just the ease of the business of what's been going on from then to now. But the fundamentals
Right.
of, you know, understanding people's needs and trying to get them to what they need to get to, exactly the same.
Well, I also think that the one good thing, don't shoot me, but the one good thing that came out of COVID is I think there was a reluctance to rely on technology before. And once the pandemic hit, we had no other choice.
No other choice.
And we had to, because I remember a lot of businesses were saying, oh, it's impossible to work from home. We are never going to work from home.
That's right.
And now they're shutting their offices down because it's less overhead. And hey, keep working from home. We're still making our quotas and we're still doing everything that we had to.
Yeah. And that, you know, it poses a challenge for some of the ancillary businesses that needed people to be, you know, in a community like Burlington.
Exactly.
You know, when you have most of your daytime population not coming in, the restaurants get affected, the people get affected, things like that.
Right.
But in a business like real estate, it actually altered it dramatically because people needed different living spaces.
Right.
And you are 100% right. It elevated the game in how efficiently you could do something.
Exactly.
Whether you worked in a corporate environment, you know, it elevates the game when all of a sudden you're home and you have to get a certain amount of things done. All of a sudden you're realizing you can do it pretty efficiently
Right.
and get the work done.
And I think the businesses realized, hey, the employees, the people are getting it done.
They're getting it done. The job is getting done, and the same is happening in all industries, really. The job is getting done. You know, the pandemic has shown us a lot of bad, obviously, right? Hard things, but it's also taught us some things that can be done a little bit more efficiently, for sure. Yeah.
A couple of times just now you've mentioned businesses.
Yes.
So you are also involved in the Burlington Area Chamber of Commerce.
I am.
And you even have your own TV show called BACC Talk.
I do.
Hence the title of this episode.
Yeah.
So how are you involved in various businesses and how did you get involved in the chamber?
So back to having the kids,
Okay.
right? Because everything starts
Everything
and ends
goes
with
back
the
to the
babies,
kids.
right? So when I had my children and I was home a little bit more and I was looking to get more involved in Burlington in the community, you know, I encourage everybody to do that. You got to get involved in the community your children are growing up in, right? So, so when I was getting involved, my mother-in-law had told me there was a group, Mother to Mother, and I was young. I didn't know many people in town, and I went to this mothers group where I met a lot of great people who are still some of my closest friends now. But they started fundraising for Simons Park. And Simons Park at the time, and I'm dating myself now, but Simons Park was nothing like it is now. There were, you know, the play structures were older, and we needed to raise $120,000 to rebuild a park. And it was my first entrance to fundraising in a community. It was my first entrance to going to town meeting for money, which was interesting.
Fundraising's hard.
It is
and
hard.
Going in front of town meetings intimidating.
Absolutely. But then it was also my first entrance to the chamber because we went to solicit the businesses. At the time, the chamber was known as the BBRT, which was the Burlington Business Roundtable, and there were many great people sitting on a board. And I met them, and we did some fundraising, but then I started to get to know some of them, and I started to do some events with them. They actually hired me to do a few events with them. And then once I started getting into real estate and not doing that, I started to volunteer at the chamber. I have a bug. I think you have the same kind of bug, a volunteer bug.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, so happy to do that. And I started volunteering with the chamber and then eventually got more and more involved and found myself to be on the board for a while. I was the chairman of the board for 10 years with Bob Buckley from Reamer and Bronstein, so we served together. And it's been nothing but rewarding because you do learn that it really takes a village. It does take a village. And businesses of all sizes come together in an organization like that. And the goal is to work toward the common goal, right? And to make business better, not just for the businesses in town, but for the residents in town. And when you have that special magic of being a resident and a business person in town, then it's a vested interest to understand both sides. So that's
and
how
you
I got
actually
involved.
see both sides at work, and
You
you
do.
see the pros and cons of each side.
No, you absolutely do. And there's so much important things that the business community brings to this town. And quite frankly, there's so many important things that the residential base brings forward for the businesses. So it's actually a perfect marriage. It's just that some days are more challenging than others for one side or the other.
That's the case in a lot of different
Yeah.
areas as well.
Yeah.
But how do businesses become involved in the
chamber?
In the chamber.
So it's a membership-based organization. The Chamber of Commerce, people think, myself included, when I was raising money for a playground, I thought there was an endless amount of supply of funding there, right? I thought, well, surely they can give us money, you know.
Right.
But that's really not what the chamber is. The chamber is a nonprofit organization.
Oh, okay.
So it's membership fees and the events we run, which have been challenged in the past few years, but the events we run actually raise funds in order for us to run an office. You know, there was 3 staff members, now 2 staff members there. Rick Parker, who's the president there, does a phenomenal job running the organization. And people can join. It's a membership fee based on the amount of full-time employees you have.
Okay.
And once you're a member, you have access to a lot of different things. You have access to a government affairs committee. You have access to events. You can join different committees and help. We encourage people to do that. There's small networking events, larger ones, daytime ones, evening ones. We have a restaurant group that talks about the challenges and the benefits of restaurants.
Okay.
So there's a lot of great.
Do you get to like eat at all the different restaurants?
Well, I do with back talk. Yeah, but yes, other people do too, because what's really nice is it's almost like a family, you know. I mean, and really businesses who haven't joined, I encourage them to just kind of step into it. It's a comfort level of knowing that there are other businesses and everybody's working together to try to make doing business in Burlington pleasurable for everybody.
Now, are there limits to like non-compete clauses for, you know,
No.
like organizations
No.
to join?
You know, anybody can join because there's power in numbers. And we really believe that as a committee. You know, we believe that the more people we are, the better, you know.
Okay.
And I have to say, during the COVID months, we dropped that idea that if you weren't a member, we were helping anybody who needed help at that point.
Okay.
Because the goal is to have people continue to do good business. You know, if you understand the way the town funding works, over 66% of the tax base comes from the business community. So it is in our best interest as of residents
Exactly.
to have that continue to
And I think that's
flourish.
one of the big draws for families and individuals
100%.
to live in Burlington
Yeah.
is because
The tax
there's
base.
The
Yeah.
tax base.
I mean, when you think about all of the things that our recreation department does or that our school system has inclusive in the tax dollar, it's huge.
It's
you know,
huge.
It's huge. So sometimes it's hard to see that when you're a resident, and I don't blame them for that. If you
Right.
don't know the breakdown,
Right.
you're not really capturing all of that.
Exactly.
But when you see it on an aerial shot, then you really understand that both sides are integral to making Burlington the community that it is.
absolutely.
Yeah, so there is no limit to how many of each trade can be in there. Everybody's welcome, and we believe that when there's a few people, for example, we have many realtors who are part of the chamber. Again, power in numbers. We're able to, you know, socialize together, network together, brainstorm together.
Love it.
Yeah.
One big happy networking. group.
Yeah, something like that,
Because
right?
yeah, I remember, you know, a long time ago when I was job searching, it's like it's not what you know, it's who you know.
100%, and that's the whole theory behind the chamber.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So what are some of the fundraisers that the chamber does?
So, in days gone by, which we
well,
will
yeah,
hope
COVID
to see,
changes everything.
Right, the community is very aware of the Taste, which was, we used to call it the Taste of Burlington. We then turned it to just the Taste because predominantly it's Burlington restaurants, but some of our members are on the outside because we're technically the Burlington area Chamber of Commerce, right? So that's Burlington and the surrounding communities. So we ran the Taste for years. We celebrated, I want to say we did 11 years before COVID hit. I might be off by a year, but you know, we'll hope to bring it back.
Several years.
Several years, more than 10. Yeah, but But we'll hope to bring that event back because it was a great fundraiser for the chamber, but it was also a great fundraiser. It was a great event for the community. And all of the restaurants came and did.
You get introduced to all these different
Oh, it's beautiful. It really is. You can go through and, you know, everybody brought their best wares. I mean, it was a really great event. The Marriott had hosted it before for us. Cafe Escadrille has done it before.
Wow.
We had it at the high school when we first started.
Oh,
so there was a
wow.
lot of great there. We do golf tournaments. You know, we have done the gala for a number of years, which was a black tie gala that the chamber has a charitable arm.
Okay.
And the black tie gala benefited 8 charities, and the net proceeds would divide between the 8 charities.
Now, are those charities also local?
Also local.
Okay.
Charities like Help Us and Woman Aid, and I'm leaving out a whole lot. Skate for the 22, you know, so there's a lot of different charities that are local organizations, and what we would do is raise funds. People would have a great night. They'd all get decked out.
That's the fun part.
Oh, it was so much fun, and we hope to do that again because over the course of the years that we did it, the chamber raised over $100,000 for nonprofits, which is something we're really proud of. Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. So we'll hope to bring that back.
That is amazing.
Yeah, yeah. Now, outside of those types of fundraisers, again, membership always comes in.
Okay.
Sponsorships from the companies come in. And then our events that are inclusive for our members are things like AM networking. PM networking is hosted at restaurants. So, you know, the restaurants will open the doors for us. People can network and they'll have appetizers out, which is really nice. So there's a lot of different, there's something for everyone. Isn't that a good saying? There's something for everyone.
So I will let you get a drink because I'm like, it sounds like you're starting to lose your voice.
I
But
know,
the
it's been
stories
a
are
long
amazing.
day.
I love
I'm a
this.
talker.
Well, that's a good thing. You're a people person.
That's right. That's true.
So speaking of all the chamber activities,
Yes.
Burlington BACC,
Yes.
you host the show BACC Talk.
Yeah, I love it.
So how did you decide to do a series, and tell us more about it? How does it work?
BACC Talk has evolved. Prior to my doing it, there was the former president of the chamber was doing a show on BCAT. When he left, it lulled for a little bit, and we thought we really should bring it back because we have a lot of great people. First of all, BCAT does great work, right?
Absolutely.
Right. So we should.
That's why I volunteer here too.
Yeah, they do great work, and there's a lot of great people who work here who put out a lot of good information for the residential base. We really felt that bringing BACC Talk here would be wonderful because we would be able to introduce to the residential base some of the businesses that do great business in Burlington. So that is the goal of BACC Talk, is we bring on guests who are members of the chamber, and they talk about different things that are great. You know, sometimes it's zoning issues, sometimes it's new builds that are coming. We've had accountants on talking about tax time. You know, we have different restaurants on, and we have a foodie segment, which, someone has to do it.
The foodie segment,
Yeah.
because you're always like at some amazing restaurant.
I know, and I always say, Tad and I are really lucky because someone has to go there and test it. It's a tough job, you know.
But you're doing a service to the community
Thank
by
you.
doing that.
Yeah. So that part is a lot of fun, and that too, you know, we look at that like we're highlighting our restaurant members. They are at times doing fantastic and at times struggling really because there's lack of help and so many different other things. So that's our way of giving back to our membership by being able to highlight and promote some of our members and be able to show their wares and what they have.
Marketing tool.
It really is, and it really ultimately what BACC Talk does is it humanizes the businesses, right? It shows you the people behind what's happening in these businesses. It's not all about, you know, how much they're bringing in or what they're doing, but that there are, you know, everyday people going in every day, doing the best they can to deliver a good or a service to the community, and you know, they're raising money to go home and help their family. I mean, that's, so being able to sit down with someone and have that one-on-one conversation in the studio, it allows people to see the human side of them. That's the way I see it.
Seems like you also do a lot of field promotion, like you're in the restaurants or you're in the businesses.
Well, we really felt like
that's got to be a lot of work.
It's Tad. He's so great.
Yay,
I mean, you know, I could sit here and tell you like, oh yeah, I go out there. But I mean, you know, he's really doing a lot of, he does
yeah.
the work part. I go in and chat, and I'm a chatter, so I can do that.
Perfect.
Yeah, but you know, we go into people's restaurants or we go into businesses because, again, it's also just showing people what there is, you know, and it's showing them the back end of, you know, when you sit at a restaurant and your meal comes out, you don't see the back end of 14 different things.
You don't see where all the magic happens.
Yeah, and so we get to show you the magic a little bit, which is fun.
Cool.
Yeah, a lot of fun. I really enjoy it.
Now, how long have you been host of the show?
I bet it's been 4-ish years.
Ooh.
Maybe somewhere around there. Maybe 5.
And how frequently do you do new episodes?
So we try to do a new episode every month.
Okay.
With COVID, that was a little bit
Challenging.
challenging. Yeah. So we would run them. You know, we try to have a foodie segment every month, and we try to have a new guest every month. So our most recent one was we were at Karma, which is, have you been to Karma?
I have not.
Outstanding. I mean, if you like sushi and Asian food, outstanding Asian fusion, and the owner of Karma is. This is the human element part, right? Because this man has so much energy. He has 4 different locations, the Burlington location being the newest of the 4 right now. And each one has its own flair based on the chef that's there. But he has such energy and such love for it. So that was our newest, that's our latest foodie segment, you know, that's airing, I believe, now. And we had Kelly Pappas, who was our newest, our most recently named chair of the board for the chamber. So it was nice because we got to talk about where we were going with the chamber, and we got to highlight a restaurant. So we're looking forward to our next one.
So how big is the bouncing around? I'm the queen of tangents. If
Oh,
you haven't
go for
figured
it.
that out yet,
It's all good.
how big is the board of the chamber, and how are members appointed, elected to the board?
Yeah. So
and the chair thing, how does that work?
Yeah. So I hate to keep going back to COVID, but there we live, right? So unfortunately,
3 years.
Yeah. Unfortunately, with COVID, the board, usually what we do is there's an annual meeting.
Okay.
New people are appointed onto the board. There are many members who are longstanding members. There are a lot.
How big is the board?
There's about 25 people on the board.
Oh, okay.
The executive committee is 5.
Oh, okay.
So they're the ones who talk on a much more frequent basis. Of that executive committee, there's a chairman and a co-chairman and a treasurer and a secretary. And then there's a few members who sit as, they're like the outgoings. I'm like an outgoing.
Okay.
Because I've been on I was the co-chair and I was the chair.
Transition team.
Exactly. So that we move it out and bring in new people. The idea to do that is to be able to continue to bring new ideas to the board. But there's always longstanding members who have been sitting on the board for a number of years. And that brings the consistency of, you know, knowing the history of it, doing all of that, and then bringing in fresh people to have some new ideas, do that kind of thing. And what
It's a good balance,
It's a
too.
beautiful balance. But what we really hope to do is, you know, get it all back up and running to the point that, you know, the board is starting to meet more frequently, because it's very hard to put people in a room. It's still not really possible to put that many
It's
people.
hard, and a lot of people at this point are just zoomed out.
Oh,
You know,
completely
no more
zoomed out.
virtual. I'm
yeah.
done staring at the computer screen.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I get that.
Yeah. So, but the goal is to always kind of have people coming on and going off, and then there's always the consistency. Yeah.
That's good to know.
Yeah. So when members are interested in it, you know, they usually start out by being members and doing committees, because there's multiple committees within the chamber.
Okay.
So no one should feel like if they join, they have to do all these different things. Oh, I have to join the board. I have to do. You really don't. You can be a member and go to events and be happy, and we'd be happy too. You could want to go a level up and do some committees, and you don't have to do 5 of them. You could decide you want to be on the events committee or be on a government affairs committee, and that we would welcome that. And then eventually, as you get more into it, you either decide that you want to keep going and maybe hopefully one day be appointed to the board, or you choose that you're very happy right at where you are, and that's fine too, because it takes everybody to kind of make it a success.
Don't tamper with the status quo.
That's right, yeah. It's true.
Now, a couple of times you've mentioned I already forgot, government affairs.
Yeah.
What exactly does the government affairs
So
subcommittee or committee do?
the Government Affairs Committee is actually...
Sounds very important.
You know what? It is very important.
Well, not saying that the other ones aren't.
No,
but,
they're all
anytime you
important,
bring
but-
government in there, it just sounds very intimidating.
No, the beautiful part about the Government Affairs Committee of the Chamber is that they look at things that they perceive to be important to the business community, and they collectively bring a voice together from businesses of all sizes to bring it forward to the town and to the town meeting. It's really about how to do good business in Burlington. And sometimes that means we are addressing something that may be happening that is not working for the business community.
Okay,
and
fair
sometimes it means we believe something that the town is doing is excellent and we want to join forces to move that forward faster or better.
Okay.
Sometimes it means, in that room, they meet once a month. In that room, there's small businesses, there's large businesses, there's major property owners, there's attorneys, there's realtors, there's all different people who all kind of come in and collectively just talk about the common good.
Okay.
Bob Buckley, who is a partner at Reamer and Bronstein and on the executive committee with the chamber,
Okay.
He always, it's his famous sentence, we almost laugh when he says it now, but it's the truth. You leave your own agenda at the door. I paraphrased him, but that's
Okay.
basically what he says. There's no personal agendas when you're walking into the Chamber's Government Affair Committee. It's a collective discussion
Okay.
for the common good as a total.
Some people, I can imagine, have a hard time with that.
Yeah, but we've been lucky because we get there, know,
Okay.
because it really is about, if you're going to do good business, is it good for you and I? And somewhere in between, maybe we're both not perfectly happy, but in the middle we're kind of happy, and that's where we try
We'll
to
be
find.
content.
Yes, we're trying to find that middle ground, and that's what Government Affairs does.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, it's really great.
Several times we've brought up the subject of government and committees and executive functionality and all that. You've had your share with town government as well.
I have, yeah.
Tell me more about that.
Town government.
Because you were on the select board for a while.
I was on the select board for 6 years.
How did that happen?
2004 to I have no
You
idea.
just don't wake up one morning and say, "Oh, I'm gonna," or maybe
Oh,
you
Linda,
do.
I kind of did. Yeah. Yeah, I kind of did. I was working on a school campaign, again,
Okay.
back with my kids, right? And there was a lot of discussion at the time about a kindergarten center and a whole lot of things that
Okay.
people who haven't lived in Burlington for a long time have probably no idea what I'm talking about. But there was a discussion about whether to take kindergarten out of all of the elementary schools and build a kindergarten center.
Oh, okay.
And it would have been preschool and kindergarten, and I won't bore you with that, but there was a whole lot of discussion going on. And I got involved in
Okay.
a campaign to discuss certain things, and it went to a vote for the town, and there was an override that didn't pass, and so on and so forth. There was a lot of things that happened, but in any event, I got the bug a little bit, and someone said to me, "You should consider running for selectman," and I was like,
Now, had you previously had any?
No.
Oh, okay.
I did not. I had a lot of, I had experience working in the business world. I had experience volunteering. I had some experience now with the town. I knew some of the town things based on the playground.
Okay.
As crazy as that seems, but you learn a lot when you're building a playground.
Well, not when you're building anything in town.
Yeah, and you meet a lot of people, and someone said you should consider running for selectman, and I thought, I don't.
All right.
Yeah, and I went home and I was like, and I said to my husband, they want me to run for selectman, and he was like, what? It was one of those conversations, and
Yeah.
I woke up the next morning and I thought, why not? And honest to God, that was as simple as it was in my brain. Why not?
Wow.
Yeah, and I went to town hall, not knowing then what I know now, that when someone pulls papers for selectmen, it causes a ruckus. I didn't know that.
Oh, okay.
Just so we're all clear.
I don't think I would have
I didn't know that
known
part.
that.
When you go
Okay.
into the town clerk's office and you say, I'd like to pull papers, and then they said, for what? And I said, selectmen, and they all looked up because apparently people plan that.
You
Who knew?
think?
Who knew at the time? I didn't know, and maybe it was better that I didn't know because I really was going in it. At the time, really, I was going in it. I really truly believe because I was starting to enjoy giving back to my community. And I thought, how better way to give back to the community than get involved in town government? And it was probably one of the best things I've ever done.
Wow, I'd be terrified.
Oh, I was terrified. Oh, make no mistake, I was terrified. But I was very fortunate, and then I found a few people who really kind of wanted to help me run.
Okay.
So I had a great campaign committee, and we raised funds for a campaign, and we did all of these great things. And it was probably one of the hardest, most rewarding things I ever did. The running part, I'm not even talking about serving, just the running part was unbelievable. But it was great. And one of the people who ran my campaign said to me, one of the best things you'll ever know about running for selectman is that you'll meet people that you would have never normally crossed paths with. They don't have kids your age, or you don't work with them, or you're just meeting people that you would normally never even meet before. And he was 100% right. Some of my most favorite people now are people that I met through town government, and I would have never even known them if I hadn't had that chance.
Wow.
And I think in those 6 years I learned a lot. I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about the community. I learned a lot about
running a campaign.
I learned that it takes a lot of effort to be able to get something passed, and that it has to meet a level of satisfaction to not just you and I, but to a mass in order to make it work. And that was pretty significant. I mean, it was very rewarding. It really was. And I don't regret a day that I did there. I really don't. I think it was everything I did heartfelt. Some days were nicer than others.
That's in any case.
100%. But I learned a lot. And I think what I learned there actually really helped me in my real estate career, just because I really learned the mechanics of a municipality.
Oh,
and that matters. It matters.
Who would have thought?
Yeah, it's amazing. It really is. So it was a great experience. I feel blessed to be able to do that.
After your stint on the Board of Selectmen, now known as the Select Board, how have you maintained your connection to town government?
So I was on town meeting for a number of years after I was a Select Board. I'm not used to that yet.
Well, it was still Selectman then.
I was a Selectman then, right? Yeah. So I was on town meeting for a number of years. I moved in town from one spot to another. I lost my seat there because I changed precincts. Okay. So when you leave your precinct, you obviously can't keep your seat.
But it always seems like precincts are always looking for people.
They are, so I've been in my new house now a couple of years, and I haven't
settled in yet.
What's the right word? Re-engaged in that part? Yeah. Okay. But I still do sit on the Finance Committee. I'm on the Ways and Means Committee. Oh, okay. So that is coming into our heavy season. It's budget season in Burlington. So you start prepping for the May town meeting. So even though I'm not on town meeting, I'm still involved in the budgetary process. Okay. Ways and Means will start meeting every Wednesday now.
Which is no small feat on its own.
It is a challenge. It really is. And that's another thing that I feel very fortunate to be around. We have a great administration in Burlington. We're very lucky. The professional staff that Burlington has, and I will go all the way back from when I was on the board to now, we're more than fortunate on the people that are employed in Burlington. Oh, we really are. They're not only quite good at what they do, intelligent, caring, but they really do understand the dynamics of what needs to happen in order to, when you think about it, Burlington's a multi-million-dollar corporation is what it is.
Pretty much.
Yeah, and so they have to be able to run that. And so being on Ways and Means is still gratifying for me, because you can really see the difference you're making when you're funding certain aspects of different budgets. So
that's got to be hard sometimes, making that decision. It's like, do we want to do this or that?
So here's the interesting thing. Burlington isn't in the same predicament that a lot of towns are. We were for a long time, not presently, but were for a long time, fat and happy, quite frankly. Okay. The money was coming in. We never had to pit one department against another because we were very well run. So conservatively, there was money that was being had.
Okay.
But we were also able to fund things collectively and be
Okay.
able to move the community forward. That's tightening a little bit. You know,
Okay.
there is challenges now financially. So now you're 100% right. Now it's difficult. Some days you're looking at the budget and you're like, do they really need an extra person in that department?
Right.
Or would I rather be holding on to some of that
Who
money?
do I want mad at me today?
Yeah. So that's a little bit more difficult.
Okay.
It's still not as difficult as other communities who don't have capacity in their levy,
okay.
you know, and I won't bore everybody watching this with levy capacity, but Burlington is still ahead of the game that way.
Okay.
It's just that you still have to be mindful that with everything you pass as a body in town meeting, you are ultimately tasking the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Assessors to now get a tax rate out of that. So people say,
okay.
oh, the board raised my taxes. Well, that's the final piece. What happened is things got voted in. Now the board has to come up with a tax number to meet those dates, you know, or to meet that money, rather. So that's where the tricky part comes in now. Yeah, but not, we're still more fortunate than most.
Okay.
I'll go with that. We're
That sounds
struggling
good.
more than we used to, but more fortunate than most. Yeah.
Now, there's another organization that I heard a rumor that you're involved with, and I
Okay.
really hope you're involved in it.
Okay.
Relay for Life.
Yes.
What
Yes.
role have you played and how long? Just tell me that story.
Relay for Life. So I have been involved with the Relay for
Now,
Life.
were you
and
involved with Dancing with the Stars at all?
I was.
Dancing with the Burlington Stars.
I was. I won the first year of Dancing with the Stars. Yeah. Yeah, it was
Do you
fun.
remember what kind of dance you did?
I remember very well. I did the swing. Yeah. As a matter of fact, I still dance with the person who taught me the swing. I go once a week to Cadence in Woburn, and they are the ones who volunteered their times to do Dancing with the Stars. So Relay for Life has many components, of course. You
Of
know
course.
the relay itself that happens.
Okay. Now, are you still involved, or was this a?
So it's
past
funny
thing?
because there was a lull in the relay, and I wasn't involved for a couple of years, but for a number of years I was involved. Cheryl Schaffman, who's no longer the chair,
Okay.
but was at the time, she and a great steering committee kind of did a beautiful job with the relay, and I used to do the survivor dinner, so I would sponsor the survivor dinner. We did that for a number of years, and then someone else took it over for a few years, which was wonderful. I did Dancing with the Stars, and I would help with Dancing with the Stars, but also the first year was one of the dancers. So there were six, I think there were 6 of us maybe that danced, maybe more. And that was a lot of fun. So we did that for 5 years, I think, Dancing with the
wow.
Stars. And again, a lull because of
Yeah.
the
If you
COVID.
can't have people in a room and 6 feet of distance, it's kind of hard to do
impossible
the
to dance.
swing.
That's
if you
right.
have to
That's
maintain that 6 feet.
That's exactly right. But when you see the money that's raised with Relay, and I believe from what I'm hearing, I just got word from Brianna Aprazizi, who works for the American Cancer Society, and she is the one who is tasked with bringing the relay back this year, you know, doing the relay this year. And I actually just spoke to her recently, so I'm hoping to help out again this year because they do great work. I mean, I think that goes unsaid, right? That the relay does beautiful
Exactly.
work.
Well,
They
and
raise great money.
I'm actually doing a fundraiser this weekend for a friend of mine who lost her battle with cancer.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And Brianna reached out to me and said, "Hey, I saw you were doing this. Can Relay for, what can American Cancer Society do?" And she's actually hopefully going to be on my show a couple of months.
Oh, that's great. She's a
So
powerhouse.
We're still kind of working through that, but she did just reach out to me.
She's wonderful. And, you know, she herself is a survivor, so she is heartfelt in what she does. And I just think it's beautiful work. You know, that's another one of those things that's gratifying.
Okay.
You might leave the night really tired from doing what you were doing at the relay, but
But you know you made a difference.
100%. And doesn't that matter? No.
So yeah.
Yeah.
I'm looking at my questions. Any other favorite stories? Because I know that, like, in the prepping, I said any favorite happy homeowner stories
Oh, favorite happy homeowners.
or any happy stories.
Yeah. Well, you know what? There's a lot. I mean, in the world of homeowners, there's a lot of, you see every emotion with
Okay.
a homeowner, right? But what I've recently told people is some of my favorites is it's very hard to find a house in today's market.
Yeah.
And you are
What
challenged.
are some of the statistics about like what is the availability in Burlington or?
So today, the
Yes.
snapshot of today is there are 6 houses on the market in Burlington.
That's it?
6.
Wow.
Yeah, and they are each in a different category.
Okay.
So like if you can afford $800,000, there's one. If you can afford $750,000, there's one. You know, it's like that. It's like
Okay.
sporadic. And to be honest, they move so quickly that people are putting in offers and they're not being accepted. So you are doing
Do they always turn into bidding wars?
almost always.
Oh,
Almost always. So there's, you could get anywhere from 5 to 20 offers on a property, and then
Wow.
now that means there's 19 people who didn't get it.
Who didn't get a house? Yeah.
And then they have to keep going. So I always say my favorite stories
Okay.
are there's nothing quite as beautiful as calling someone and telling them that they got the offer, because usually it's not their first one,
Okay.
and lately you end up getting people who, one woman said to me she had written 7 offers. This was her 8th. And
Wow.
I called her to say she got it, and the first words out of her mouth were, "Oh my God, I think I'm going to cry." And I'm a weeper. So the second she said that, I was like, "Don't cry, because I will
already
too."
crying.
Yeah, exactly. But I could tell you that story 5 different times over with different people,
wow.
but hearing that joy in their voice when they know that they got the house that they have been bidding for,
Yeah.
it's really very exciting for them, because
And that struggle, especially if you've lost out
100%.
7 times. It's
100%.
like, 1, I got my dream house, and 2,
Right.
this struggle is over.
100%. Now fast forward and look at the other side when we're listing somebody's home, and we're able to take what they made as a real estate investment 15 years ago and double their money or triple their money, or if they bought it 20 years ago, forget it. They
Right.
did, and to be able to see people who say like, I can't believe I got this much for my house, and to be able to deliver that kind of news, especially when they've worked so hard to kind of have their home, it's really it's a rewarding feeling to be able to say that to somebody, and you're like a matchmaker,
Never really thought of it like that.
Oh, you totally are. You're like a matchmaker. So you do leave. I kind of say you leave like with a sense of pride. You leave thinking this is as good as it gets on some days. Now, some days you're like, oh my God. But 90% of the time you leave as good as it gets. And it's really kind of remarkable to see the smiles.
wow.
So it's not so much that it's one happy story as much as you get to be there. Again, sometimes it's not a happy moment for people, but most of the time it is,
Right.
and you get to be there in that happy moment with them, like they're getting things and getting everything ready. And we really pride ourselves on getting houses ready for market.
Oh, okay.
So,
How do you do that?
oh yeah, there's a whole lineup on that.
Yeah, okay,
I mean, we absolutely will take you from start to finish. So if somebody feels like they need a few things ready for their house, that might mean changing a paint color in a room, bringing in stagers to change the furniture, moving things around. By the time we're done getting a house ready for market, the homeowner inevitably says, my house has never looked better, and I think I want to stay.
Now.
Yeah, exactly. We always joke with them because it's a transformation.
Okay.
How you live and how you sell, 2 different things.
2 different. Totally.
Totally.
Well, see, I'm also, thinking in my own personal experiences, yes, my parents are downsizing and they're leaving their house.
Yes.
That they had built in 1963 when they had
Right.
got married. So
Right.
there are a lot of memories there. And, when you were saying from the perspective of the buyer, I have my dream house.
Yes.
But from the perspective of the seller, I'm leaving all these memories
Oh,
behind.
100%. Yeah.
And now I can't imagine, well, I'm trying to imagine what it would be if you're selling your house with all of these memories. And it seems like in Burlington, those memories are getting knocked down to put up a new house.
Yeah. And that's really difficult right now because that's twofold. The challenging part with the housing stock in Burlington is that I know it seems to the general population that there's a lot of condominiums in town. There are really not enough alternatives to single-family housing at affordable rates for some of the housing population who are aging out of their home.
Okay.
So when people say there's a lot of knockdowns, I would respectfully submit to people that the knockdowns are happening because they're actually staying in their house too long.
Okay.
Sometimes it's not memory based. Sometimes it's not because they don't want to leave their memories. There's a lot of those people, and that's for sure.
Right.
Sometimes it's because they actually can't afford to make that move. They can't sell their house and buy something that's single level living, for example.
Okay.
Which is why when the condominiums went up across from CVS, I remember very vividly people saying, who would ever live on CVS? Well, across from CVS on Cambridge Street. Well, many people. And not only did they live in there, but the numbers of them have escalated, which tells you there's a demand for them. So that part makes me a little sad because as beautiful as the new constructions are, and they are, we need that housing stock of ranches and smaller homes for the entry level.
Right, exactly.
Right?
I was thinking
you
about
need
that
those.
earlier.
You know, you need those in order to keep people in here. But sometimes people stay in the house too long and the house gets tired. Well, once it gets past a certain point, your first-time home buyer is not going to buy it because they're not going to do the renovation to it. Now it's the building community. That's not a bad thing. God bless for those who are buying the larger homes, great. But it is a problem in that you don't have some of the smaller housing stock.
Exactly.
For some of the
not everybody, fresh out of college
can afford a $2 million
can afford a
$1.4
million house. It's like, okay, I need that starter home. I need that three bedroom ranch.
Exactly. But you said it beautifully about, it's hard to leave your memories.
It is.
It's hard to leave your memories. I mean, I left a house that I raised my kids in, 3 years ago, and I do this for a living. So I thought,
I can do this.
I can do this. Yeah. And when I got to the door, I was like, oh my God, I don't know if I can leave. I mean, of course I had to leave. I told it.
Well,
but
well, there is that.
But it is very hard to leave your memories. So when you think about people who've been in their homes for 50 and 60 years.
I know. Oh, yeah. And, I'm trying to be very supportive of my parents, and I'm okay with it now.
Yes.
But I have a feeling when that house actually finally goes on the
hard.
market, that's when I'm going to start crying.
Of course, because it's your base.
Exactly.
Now, the truth is your memories will go with you, but that doesn't feel good while it's closing. It really, I mean,
fortunately, I haven't lived there in like 25, 30 years. So that helps because I've already been kind of emotionally separated from it.
Yeah.
But, changing gears, I'm also thinking about my neighbor who just recently sold his house because he couldn't afford it due to the pandemic.
Yes.
And, financially, he was strapped and needed the smaller house. But it's like, it wasn't a bad house. No. And now they're knocking it down.
They are.
So they're supposed to be knocking it down. They were supposed to knock it down back in September, and we're still staring at an empty lot. And
I see.
That's a little frustrating for, the area
I see.
neighbors. But,
yeah.
It's like that would have been a perfect home for a young family.
Yeah.
And it's just this struggle. And as the next door neighbor, I'm like, I don't want to see a $1.4 million house there. I want my neighbor back.
Yeah. It's hard. It really is, because there's a lot of different levels within the real estate market, and there's a lot of different needs.
And I think I'm on all different levels right now too. So
yeah, well, there's a lot of different there's a lot of different needs. What is lacking is the end caps.
Okay.
So what's lacking is the first-time homebuyer population, not just Burlington, by the way, all around.
Oh, absolutely.
And what is lacking is that end spot, meaning where do you go when you're done with single-family housing?
Right.
And do you have enough within a community to be able to move into something that is comfortable where you can stay in your community.
Because exactly, if you've been there for 50, 60 years, you don't
Right.
want to have to move,
Right.
20,
Right.
30, 50 miles away.
Correct. Now, the truth is, in some of the communities around us, Burlington and some of the ones around us, the cost of land has escalated so much that they are doing quite well selling.
True.
But now the inventory is just not there on the
Right.
on the condominium side.
And yeah, you're making all this money on
where
your
are you
house,
going?
but where can you go?
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I mean, there is always a solution. There's a solution to everything, but it is a challenge right now for the end caps. It's always been a challenge, I think,
Okay.
because it's hard to be able to afford to come into a community. I mean, it used to be, well, I can tell you very comfortably when I bought a ranch, my husband and I at the time bought a ranch, we paid $145,000. And I remember very vividly both of us being like, oh my God, I hope we can afford it.
Can we,
You
we're
what I
going to
mean?
have,
Like,
ramen noodles
yeah,
for,
we were both like, holy moly, I hope we can afford this house. And that same house in today's marketplace is $600,000 easy.
I was about to
and
say.
probably more like $630,000, $640,000.
Wow.
As it stood when I bought it, like not updated, just as it
Okay.
kind of stood, So that's a big difference.
Yeah.
And although salaries have increased, of course, that's
Not, at the
like
same
that.
rate.
Yeah, So that's where it's really a challenge, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard,
Yeah, I am very grateful that we bought when we did, that we were able to get into Burlington. And
Yeah.
one advantage that we did have was my husband had bought a condo in a surrounding town
Yep.
or an area town. And within 5 years, he got in right at the bottom. And in a 5-year period, he was able to get double what he paid for it.
Right.
And it's like, okay, that's our down payment. We're going to Burlington.
Absolutely. And I think that's where people have capitalized and done well, is people who had owned something before and they're
Right.
able to sell it and buy something
But
different.
not everybody has that luxury.
No.
So.
No, it's a little bit more difficult.
Okay, we are almost out of time. One more
Okay.
happy story to end on. Do you got one?
A happy story?
A happy story.
Real estate happy?
Any happy story.
Oh, any happy story.
It could be a real estate one.
Well, I mean, I think everything for me revolves around gratitude. I really do. So the happy story for me is that 20 years later, I'm still really quite blessed doing what I'm doing. And to be able to have a lot of my teammates around me and to be able to provide for people. I mean, I feel like it's like one large happy story to me. You know what I mean? Like, I really do. I feel like we are doing the best we can, and it's not just because of the business we're doing, but it's because of what we're able to do with people and with everybody. I am a big believer in giving back to the community. So some of my best moments are really, helping different nonprofits. I think that's what's the important part.
And I think you have done a lot for the, based on this conversation, you've done so much
Thank you.
positive for the
Thank you.
community.
Yeah.
So thank you for coming.
Thank you for
seem
having
like,
me.
A Burlington celebrity, so that's why you
thank
were on
That's
Dancing
very
with the
kind
Stars.
of you. Yeah.
So thank you very much.
I appreciate you having me.
And I also want to thank everyone at home for tuning in this evening. I hope that you were inspired by giving back to the community and all the different ways that you can do that. So I hope that you did get something out of tonight's conversation. And I also hope you have a safe and warm coming week. And I will see you around town. Good night.